Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy we're here. My name is Diana Folsom, and our session is titled The Blossoming of the Semantic Web, Linked Open Data and the American Art Collaborative. I can't believe I'm sitting here with my colleague, Shane Richey, from the Crystal Bridges Museum, talking about linked open data after just 9 months of starting to digitize the 300,000 collection at the Gilcrease Museum, my new home. We're a small museum that's part of the University of Tulsa and City of Tulsa partnership in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we've got a fabulous cultural corridor started between Tulsa and Bentonville. And we're interested in starting a high south SIG. If I can say that a few times fast, that'll be good. Jana, you're already in it. When Eleanor Fink called the MCN hotline to describe her linked open data project with Rachel Allen at the Smithsonian American Art Museum, I jumped at the chance to get involved. Eleanor Fink and Rachel Allen were looking at ways to expand their work at SAAM to other museums. So now Shane and I are part of a project for laying the foundation for this initiative. We've talked about this linked open data for so many years at MCN. Remember Coven Smith's detailed talk about the labor required to make data ready for the semantic web? My head was spinning after that. I remember a Saturday morning session a few years ago. It was daunting.
Excuse me. My name is Shane Richey. I work at Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. We're an American Art Museum in Bentonville, Arkansas. We opened our doors to the public in 2011. Thank you. I joined the museum in 2009, so for the last 4 years, I've had the pleasure of building and working with the team to build a web presence for a museum kind of from the ground up, which has been a lot of fun. Again, daunting is another word I would use to describe it. This spring, we received a call from Eleanor to talk to us about the American Art Collaborative, to talk to us about linked open data and what they're doing with it. And honestly, the timing was perfect with it because we were getting ready to go online with our collection, and which we kind of viewed as the first step. We were looking for the next step, which was to kind of increase access to the objects in our collection and the information and the data we had stored with it. You'll hear more about the Karma tool a little bit in the presentation. I will say it's a great tool for us because it simplifies a process of converting your data to linked open data. It kind of opens the door to kind of incorporate linked open data into your strategy. And it's also been an invaluable experience to work with Eleanor and the American Art Collaborative for a museum. It's been a great learning experience.
So our goal with this session is to describe what's going on in the area of the semantic web and to learn about the details for what it takes to prepare our data and offer it for use in the internet knowledge base. The presentations will be practical and of value for all sizes of museums, but especially for the small museum, since that's the perspective that we now represent.
So, and very briefly, you'll hear more about the American Art Collaborative here in just a minute, but just quickly, the goal is for it to become a central point of collaboration, information, and support for museums who are working towards converting their data to linked open data and collaborating with other institutions. Right now, we're working on building interest in participation. Once we hit that critical mass, we hope to serve as a knowledge base for data conversion, development for moving forward into the future.
We planned the presentation to include Eleanor Fink, Rachel Allen, and Pedro Szekely. Pedro Szekely is the project leader for USC's ISI, Information Sciences Institute. Unfortunately, he's unable to be here today, but Eleanor Fink will be incorporating his points into her talk to represent his technical expertise. He will also be available by email to answer questions, but send your questions to Eleanor. I think we have her email address online, and then she'll get Pedro involved in providing answers.
Eleanor Fink is up here with us. She currently serves as the Art and Technology Consultant for the Information Sciences Institute at the University of Southern California, where she's been instrumental in establishing the American Art Collaborative to support linked open data as a means of providing seamless access to art information across museums, libraries, and archives. Eleanor is a former president of the Museum Computer Network and Visual Resources Association. Currently, she serves on the board of several organizations and was the co-chair of Euromed 2014 World Congress on Cultural Heritage held in Cyprus earlier this month. Also, I'd like to add, this is my first time at MCN, and it's exciting. I've had a great morning so far. Also, it's very humbling and exciting for me to get to share a panel with it's three past board members rather.
So I begin? Is
You
that
begin.
good? Yeah, okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm going to give you a little introduction to linked open data and the landscape in the realm of the arts, what's happening among some of the various projects. And then Rachel and I are going to drill down into more detailed information about how the Smithsonian American Art Museum converted their data to linked open data and give you some information on Karma, which is a tool the Information Sciences Institute at the University of Southern California developed, an open source tool that has made an enormous difference in converting data to linked open data. Okay. So I think you may already know, since we've been talking about linked open data in our community for a while, that it's a method of publishing structured data so that it can be interlinked and become more useful. And it uses a markup language called RDF that allows the relationship between subject, predicate, and object to be tagged explicitly so that you don't get the noise you often get in a Google search. And here we just see that you have the data, which can be the subject, predicate, and object, and then the explicit links that make the difference in terms of it's the contextual information that explicitly makes a difference in terms of what you are looking at and how it's tagged. And this is really a slide that is the impetus in some respects behind the American Art Collaborative. Mainly, we probably all here in this room have a website and are from a museum. But right now, if you're someone from the public or a scholar, you have to kind of go to each of our websites to seek what you are looking for. Only when you get there sometimes do you actually know what is there. So linked open data is an opportunity to tear down the silos and to allow seamless access across our websites. And I think that's one of the concepts that has really driven the American Art Collaborative and has made it such an exciting project. And I think it, to me, coming back to MCN has been so exciting. And this theme of rebuilding the museum, in many ways, I think linked open data is a real driver for rebuilding museums. But it's not just about being able to seamlessly access information across our websites. It's really that the linked open data resides in a cloud, and within that cloud there is already a universe of information. Now, we'd like to see an art section to that cloud, an art cloud, where there would be more of a critical mass of information from us. And you can connect to anything within this universe of knowledge. So it's very dynamic in a sense. So it tears down data silos, it provides seamless access across libraries, archives, and museums, and other information, obituaries, Wikipedia, New York Times, whatever it may be. But it's also something that provides rich content, or can provide rich content for distance learning in K through 12. I had the privilege of attending a very exciting distance learning summit at Crystal Bridges earlier this year, and learned that educators are interested not necessarily in getting content from just your museum or your museum, but they like to combine content from maybe a natural history museum or an archive and an art museum. And in a way, this linked open data cloud and what linked open data provides gives you that rich context to build K through 12 material. And it's also a very exciting way to deepen audience engagement. It works a little bit like Wikipedia, so that actually, if you wanted to, you could invite an audience to participate and build knowledge for your museum. If you don't want to, you can also, not do that. But it could lead to new ways for museums to engage with their audiences. And as the concept of the American Art Collaborative or Linked Open Data advances, and we have more consistency in terms of our content at museums in the Linked Open Data format, it is a really stimulating opportunity for vendors and for the private sector to come in and build all kinds of new tools for our community. Now, this just gives you a little idea of the LODLEM, the Linked Open Data Archives, Museums, and Library conferences that the first one was held in San Francisco, as I'm sure you all know, a couple of years ago. And then most recently, they had one here in Montreal back in May. And this that I took from the website just shows you the diversity from around the world of representatives who came to that conference. So it's a concept that's really growing. And another now example of where we see linked open data being applied is Yale Center for British Art. You could go to their website and they have some interesting searches as well. Well, they're working with the Information Sciences Institute as well because they're now using that Karma tool to map to an anthology we'll talk about later, the CRM. And then, of course, there's the Europeana project. I think a lot of us heard about that when it first got started because it was a bold idea to link across Europe's archives, museums, and libraries using linked open data. And this is just from their website where you can see any number of demonstrations about how linked open data works. And of course, the Mellon Foundation, interestingly enough, has been funding a project out of the UK. The coordinator, Dominic Oldman at the British Museum, is in the UK, called Research Space. And the idea, again, is to get a number of museums that would use linked open data, and then they have a number of research applications already on this website, and then they are hoping that as the critical mass is produced, vendors would come in and produce applications, open source applications that we all could then use in our space. And a project I only learned about when I went to the LODLEM here in Montreal last May is from Spain called Mis Museos. And again, it's using linked open data across several museums in Spain. So this now brings us to the American Art Collaborative. Now, in a moment, I'm going to turn this over to Rachel, and she's just going to tell you why SAAM did this and how they did it. And so they were really the start, SAAM, there in the center. But based on what we've just been talking about, it seemed that just doing SAAM obviously was a pioneering step, but it would be more interesting to be able to connect across those data silos I was talking about earlier. And so this was a simple matter of picking up the phone at first. And I knew someone had introduced me to Eric Coburn at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I made that call, and she was quite intrigued with this. And she said, let me connect you with Don Undine. And I talked to Don, and boy, that was a breath of fresh air, because I always felt the Metropolitan Museum of Art was kind of difficult in a way, and that even within that museum, there were separate departments. There were departments that had their own database, and they didn't necessarily communicate in the old days. So when I talked to Don, found out that he just loved this idea. He was a sort of out-of-the-box kind of person and very enthusiastic. That really gave me the impetus to pick up the phone and keep picking up the phone. And so gradually I called, I wanted to reach Rob Stein, and he had moved to Dallas, and I knew Max Anderson, and so they said, yes, we'll send data. So each museum sent 40 to 50 records that the Information Sciences Institute converted to linked open data. And we've been holding WebEx discussions and seminars to look at how Karma works and to just discuss and brainstorm and answer questions that we might have. It's a learning opportunity about linked open data. And now, I mean, we just have an incredibly rich, from small museums to larger museums group, and each just sent American works of art, as a step for this proof of concept about how linked open data can connect across all these museums. So let me now turn this over to Rachel. And this is just showing the connection. She's going to actually show you an even nicer slide about the the connections with linked open data.
And I'll introduce you, Rachel.
Okay.
Okay. It is my great pleasure to introduce Rachel Allen. In fact, Rachel is the Deputy Director at the Smithsonian American Art Museum and yet another past president of MCN. Rachel and Eleanor are both heroes of mine. I have loved and admired their work, and I met Rachel as part of the Amico Collaborative many years ago, and she's been a favorite of mine ever since. She oversees the day-to-day museum operations and supervises 8 of the museum's 12 offices, including the Media and Technology Office. And she's served in the position for over a decade, a time frame that included renovation of the museum's historic 19th century building that reopened in 2006. And she's served on various professional groups, both within and outside of the Smithsonian.
Well, thank you, and hello to old friends, and look forward to meeting some new friends here too. I wanted to lead you through how our museum decided to take up the Linked Open Data Challenge. So for those who don't know us, we're the nation's museum dedicated to its own art and artists, and our collections range from colonial times to the present. We have 44,000 objects in all media. We have a strong and varied exhibition program, a tradition of support for academic scholarship, and an active educational and public program. We take strongly our national mandate, and I think that I like to think that we combine it with a populist approach. So this shows up in a national traveling exhibition program, which we've managed for 50 years. We have a distance learning program. We've had a 10-year contract with the Department of Defense to serve dependents on military bases worldwide. And we have a tradition of service to the field, which is things like our Save Outdoor Sculpture database that we did 20 years ago, really, but is still active and used as a resource in the field. We combine this with the populist approach, so things like our alternative reality games, the most popular of which was Ghost of a Chance. Some of you may know our innovative Georgina Goodlander, who masterminded that. We've done some crowdsourcing to select the video games that we would show in our Art of Video Games, which is now touring the United States. And shown here is our Lunder Conservation Center. So we are creating a transparency there so that our visitors can see the conservators working on our collections. So all of this leads up to our technology goals, which in some ways mirror our museum initiatives. They allow us to be the crossroads of American art, or strive to be, I should say. I wouldn't be so bold as to say we are. But it's a way of leveraging our databases, our research, and the resources that we develop. We like to think that we lead in technology and take risk in trying new applications. Of course, they don't all succeed, but we have fun trying. We hope to reach audiences like most of you do who will never be able to visit the museum. And of course, we do that through webcast and mobile technology and our social media. And we are looking for ways to attract and engage a younger audience. So this all leads up to why we became attracted to the potential of linked open data. You know, we saw in it the possibility of helping us broaden our connections, enrich our information, leverage our resources, and be part of a larger world than we could be on our own. When we started our Linked Open Data project, it was important to me. You can tell I'm at the end of my career, not the beginning, and so it was important to me to build a team that would be a team for the future. And so I wanted multiple staff members to know about Linked Open Data. So we chose a team with diverse backgrounds. Our team included the staff who work on our research databases. These folks have experience in vocabularies and authorities. We tapped our database administrator who understood all about the relational tables in our TMS database. And then we had our web and social media content and our mobile experts, all part of the team. We started from scratch. Nobody on the team had any prior knowledge of linked open data, and we took it as an opportunity to learn together. We had all of the kinds of logistical and practical questions that you might imagine. You know, what do we need to do? How long will it take? How does this fit in with my other duties? Is this the right time and the right thing to be doing? What does it mean? Will it be useful? We might still be struggling with all these questions if we hadn't had a really experienced and excellent team to guide us through this project, and that's the Information Sciences Institute at the University of Southern California, and Eleanor will introduce them a little bit more in a minute. But this is a very simple outline of what we did to convert to linked open data. And the first step, of course, was preparing the data and deciding which fields and tables we wanted to export and convert to linked open data. And we took a practical approach, which basically said we'll export and convert all of the data that currently displays in our online collection search. With USC's help, we determined the ontology or general framework for our data. And this diagram shows that we combined a number of common ontological schemes for our project. We used the Europeana data model for the overall framework, and probably we will remap and reconvert data to the CDOC CRM so that we will expose our data both in the Europeana data model and the CDOC CRM data model. And Eleanor will tell you a little bit later about the choices involved in those two schemes. We used SCOS for classification of artist and place names, Dublin Core for tombstone data, RDA Group 2 elements for biographical information, and schema.org for geographic data. So with the framework determined, our USC team worked out the mapping of our data fields to RDF. And this slide shows the Karma tool. They presented the data back to us so that we could verify that the fields and the mappings were correct. And so this is what that tool looked like. And now I'm going to let Eleanor, having introduced Karma, I'm going to let Eleanor tell you a little bit more about that tool. And the choice of ontology.
Yeah, right. The beauty of Karma, we'll get into that in a moment, is that you can use any anthology. It's very flexible. But basically, in our field, the Europeana project, EDM, and of course the CDOC CRM seem to be the two primary ones. And as Rachel said initially, they use the EDM, but the CRM, what's interesting about it is that it's been developed out of CDOC, the Documentation Committee of the International Council of Museums, by a diverse group, including a group involving, if I'm not mistaken, archaeologists. And it's deep. And your ontology is very important. It's your backbone for the project because although we can't give you a live demonstration, Karma lets you load an anthology, a kind of a framework. And you want to, just like we knew years ago, if you want to get certain data out of your system, you have to make sure you have categories that allow that, have a place for that kind of information. And so what's important about the anthology, if it's deep, is if you want later to do research applications about something that, you know, our data can be very ambiguous, but something that will touch upon a certain piece of information, you want a framework that permits that access. And the CRM is deep, and it's evolving. It's been, Nicholas Croft has been, involved, but also Martin Dorr, and I just met with Martin, and they're doing more work on the CRM in terms of provenance, changing information, and being able to track the changes that are made. So this really seemed an important step for our field, and although Karma started using the EDM, and it is flexible, they have turned around now and mapped to the CRM, and that's what we will use going forward. And Rachel, as she said, will get it in both. The EDM can be useful too for certain vendors because it is so simple. And potentially for applications. And this is just information that I took from the Europeana website on the EDM. I think is it my turn now to talk about ISI? Yeah. So continuing along, now the partner, as Rachel said, in their project was the University of Southern California's Information Sciences Institute, ISI. They have a very distinguished history. They had worked early on with DARPA on the creation of the internet, and they're still deeply engaged in producing internet protocols. They work with the National Science Foundation and with the intelligence community and government and military, and now the reason they have such a keen interest in our community is that the former director recently who stepped down of ISI is an art collector. And he has had a deep interest in art and documentation, and so they really wanted to branch out and try to help the art community, and that's initially, why they became involved. This just gives you another idea of how they work. It's an academic institution. All the tools they produce are open source. They work with students, and they involve students in projects that they have with their many clients, including DARPA and the National Institute of Health and NSF and so forth. Karma was developed by these two people, Pedro Szekely and Craig Knobloch, depicted here. This is a great site for you to go and see a Karma demo, and which will walk you through how it works. So again, Karma is a data integration tool that eliminates the data silos that we talked about, and it's a semi-automated interactive tool. You can tweak the tables and things when your data is loaded. If you want to change, for example, a dimension range or a facet of the information, it allows you to be interactive with the tool. And it makes conversion to linked open data easy. Initially, it was developed within the intelligence community, and now, as Rachel just described, 44,000 SAAM records have been applied and converted. It also is a great tool because it's self-learning. It actually learns from the patterns. And when you have a situation like Diana described earlier, and Shane, a smaller museum that's just starting out, another great advantage of Karma is that you can go ahead and map the information you have, and it retains that information so that if you get the additional information later on, you can layer it on. It's not as if you have to rerun start from scratch. So it's very adaptable in that sense too. It can also accept data in all kinds of formats. As we started working on the American Art Collaborative and the range of technical experts from the various museums, we received the data in a whole variety of formats. And we mentioned the anthology flexibility. Now, most of my professional art and technology career, I've been a little bit skeptical sometimes about working with the private sector because when I was at the Getty and we had all these projects, we had to build them all ourselves. The projects for the vocabularies, for example, or for BHA, because there just wasn't anything out there that we could get off the shelf to do anything like that. Of course, the commercial sector always thought they had something, but they had no idea about the complexity of our information and the ambiguities of art information, so they really didn't. So I went in, being like Rachel too, a little bit skeptical about how this Karma was going to work, and we were amazed because it had a 94% accuracy rate, which was really quite astounding. And it scales to larger databases, and it can keep linked open data up to date. And it has now the linking component in it, meaning, Rachel's going to talk about that a little more. There was the conversion of the data to linked open data. There was also the linking then of that data to things like Wikipedia and to other resources as well. So Karma's current audience is the intelligence community, science, cultural heritage, and entertainment. Back to Rachel.
Okay, this is what gets me excited. This is what I like, the links. When you start to link your information using linked open data, the web becomes your content management tool in a sense. Linking allows you to broaden the context of your information, connect to the wider web, and take advantage of information that exists in other hub sites. And this diagram suggests the possibilities. This is a combination of existing linked open data sources and a wish list of others that we would like to see in the future as part of the linked open data world. This slide shows how the process worked from the museum end. ISI took our data set, our 7,000 artist names in this case, and they ran it against the DBpedia name set. And using the tool that you see here, we were presented back the data, and our staff could verify then whether these were correct matches. The human verification of the links increases its relevancy, and so that's an important step. We could have ignored it, but I think it was important to do, and our staff, like Eleanor suggested, was pleasantly surprised by the accuracy. So far, we've linked to the following 4 data sets: DBpedia, the New York Times, the Rijksmuseum, and the Getty Union List of Artist Names. And the Union List of Artist Names you might question because it actually is not available yet as linked open data. So what we've done in that case is we've matched up and grabbed their record ID so that as soon as they do publish in linked open data, we're ready to connect to it. And that, I'm told, should be soon, next year, I believe. So here is the fretting we were doing, as Eleanor described. Our staff was extremely worried about the linking aspect. They thought they would be spending tons of their time telling USC why these names didn't match and finding these false positives and so on. But we were really pleasantly surprised. The Karma tool does get smarter the more it's used, and the information presented back was accurate to 95%, and it was very, very easy to recognize the non-matches and simply then to check that was not a match. So our fears were not realized. We put the links to work to us. Like I say, this is the part that excites me. So here is our John Singer Sargent webpage, one of our artist search pages. And before we started this project, we had about 1,000 artist biographies on our search pages. These were biographies that we had written over the years and that we had ingested into our system so that they would show up on these pages. We made over 2,000 links to Wikipedia, so instantly we doubled the amount of biographical information that we were able to connect to our website. I want you also to notice that link to the New York Times. This is the John Singer Sargent page from the New York Times linked open data repository. And you can go to their repository. It's data.nytimes.com. And I put an arrow next to the web link that we picked up for our pages. And this is why I really like the New York Times data set. If you follow this URL from the Times page, you'll land on this page for John Singer Sargent. And actually, this is not live, because otherwise I would scroll down and show you, but it's really an amalgam of a variety of articles and materials that they published over the years. So it often includes obituaries, exhibition reviews, book reviews, noteworthy auction results, and all sorts of other information that would be might be harder to find. And so instantly we've enriched the information that we have available to us, and it's open-ended because as they add to their pages, our information will continue to grow. So imagine for a moment, because really our linking so far has been on artist names, but imagine for a moment that we expanded to other content areas. Many of our artworks have historical subjects, or their portraits, or their literary themes, and so we could extend our links and magnify the effect that we're getting already. We still have a lot of work to do. We have already verified the geographic place names for U.S. places, but we haven't done it for foreign places, and that's probably a more difficult task, but that is something we would like to do. We need an ongoing maintenance plan. We need a way to keep the linked open data current with the changes we make all the time in our TMS database. We need a regular cycle of running the information against these linked sites, DBpedia, New York Times, and others, to pick up new links. And I'm going to look at my Smithsonian colleague in the audience right now. USC is hosting our triple store database, and they seem happy to do that for a while, but I would hope that my own institution would pick up that task on behalf of us and other Smithsonian units in the future. And I should be honest, we still haven't made our linked open data open. We haven't published the SPARQL endpoint yet, and that should happen next month, and there are just some technical reasons we haven't done it. We're trying to do some redirects back and forth between the USC site and the Smithsonian site. But as soon as we have those things worked out, we will publish the SPARQL endpoint. So for the future, it's been kind of fun for our team to think about the longer term and the future. And I'm showing some of our topics we've discussed here. We've opened lots of avenues for exploration. You know, how would our website change if we built it on a linked open data model? How can we tag and link our social media? You know, I mentioned we made some obvious links, but we could expand that dramatically. How can we go deeper in linking? How can we link to more nuanced research information in archives or other research repositories that would really open new directions and pathways for research? We've had fun thinking about applications that might be created and that might be useful not only to us but to the entire museum community. One we've become pretty excited about building is a relationship finder application, which would tell stories about how different objects are connected. It would be a mini curation tool, if you will, that could be put in the hands of educators or students or teachers. USC has actually been working on this tool, and what it would do is allow you to put in one or more things that you would like to explore, how they're related, and then it creates little mini movies on the fly. So we think it could have potential for education, and if not just for fun, to try this and see how we could make that a practical tool for the museum community. So we've taken the first steps, but we feel as a museum that unless we can figure out how to really make this work for us, we won't have succeeded. And I also, think that a partnership within the museum community is an apt thing to do. You saw my wish list of repositories I wish I could link to, and so I hope some of you out there will be sources I could link to in the future. So thank you.
And here we have an image of a paper that we have for you that goes into much greater depth. I should mention that this paper, which was written for the Extended Semantic Web Conference held this past year, won Best in Use Award at the conference. It's available online, but also we have some copies here, and it has the step-by-step process and talks about use of the Karma tool. So I hope you can see some of the many benefits that linked open data can give us as a community. Certainly that it can create connections across our websites, and whether that be locally, regionally, or around the globe. And it provides a new way to conduct business, find information, develop applications. And of course, it leads to discovery of new research and new ideas and disciplines. So where do we go from here? This conference theme is about rebuilding the museum. We need more cultural information on the semantic web. So we're hoping that some of you will become interested and become a part of the Linked Open Data Cloud and help us build a critical mass of cultural information. And I think together, as we are experiencing with a great group of people in the American Art Collaborative, that we can approach some places for sources of funding to do more, to try to work on some applications and create the critical mass. And we're interested in helping the community with training. The WebEx dialogues we've been holding have been very educational in terms of helping everyone learn about linked open data. And, out of it, we could build a very collaborative and supportive network of practitioners. So come join us. And here's just, again, the American Art Collaborative and the institutions currently participating in it. We'd really love to talk to you if you have an interest and expand it. I think we're open for discussion. Yes.
Hi there, Tristan Brothers from COGAP. I've got a question about mapping to the CRM. Mm-hmm. Is it the case that the Karma tool is able to take one set of linked data as an input format and then convert that to another one? So in your case, talking about conversion from EDM to CRM, the reason I'm asking is we've recently completed a project for the Science Museum in London where we converted their content to linked data format, but now we're looking to remap that to the CRM, and I'm wondering if Karma could help us there.
I think so, yes.
Can you repeat the question for the audio
Oh,
recording?
gosh.
It's a hard one.
The gentleman is from a science museum, or you're with research space?
Called COGAP. We work for the Science Museum in London.
You work for the Science Museum in London, and it's a situation where you want to map to the CRM from another anthology, and you're wondering if the Karma tool could be helpful, and I would say yes. You know Dominic Oldman, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we're in collaborating with him, and he's very interested in the Karma tool himself. And we've been doing some tweaking of it for that purpose. Send me your email, and I will introduce you to Pedro at the Information Sciences Institute, and we can discuss that. But I think it could be helpful, yes.
I was just going to add, it helped me understand how the Karma tool might function when Pedro said to me, Karma's agnostic. It doesn't care what ontology you use it with. So I think it's very flexible, and if you're from another sort of museum that this wouldn't apply to, Karma would still work for you.
Yes.
I'm from the Philadelphia Museum of Art. My question involves authority records and feeding back data to, updating data. How does Karma go ahead and update, or can it update the data from a TMS implementation? As needed, does it go back and grab it itself, or is that a manual push out from within the museum? And also, in these collaborative efforts, how have the different constituents agreed upon standardized vocabularies for artist names?
Okay, so he's from the Philadelphia Museum of Art and is interested how Karma can update, in a sense, information. Does it pull it from the TMS, or does the museum have to put it out? And how is the American Art Collaborative dealing with consistency in terms of vocabulary standards and things of that sort? Yes, well, Karma, you can run data from TMS into Karma, and it will retain that information, and you can run it as you get additional information. At this time, there's no pulling out from TMS, it's putting out from the museum, but it's easy to do. And because Karma is self-learning, it becomes easier and easier to update information. It's really very efficient. As far as coordination of terminology standards across the American Art Collaborative, well, that's something we need to discuss. But in a sense, although it would be nice if everyone used exactly the same thing, because there is a link, as it is, to the across the objects, in a sense, there still can be diversity. There still can be use of, at Crystal Bridges, of a certain vocabulary standard and a slightly different one. Maybe one day we'll all be, but that's a big challenge. But there's still room for individualism within it.
Yeah, it was my understanding also that it's not Karma, but it's the RDF would allow you to say this term same as, or this name, even though I choose to use a different variant, same as that name, so that you're actually explicitly linking the two people, even though you choose to call them something else.
Right. The other lady way in the back, she had her hand up before.
So I'm Emily Gore from the Joint Library of America. I just wanted to say that during the time that you guys were working on this, we were also working on building a version of Europeana in the United States called DPLA. And
Right.
we have our own metadata application profile actually adopted from EDM that has some American-specific things that are not European, because Europeana has a lot of European-specific data schemas within it. So that you just might want to take a look at that. And we're actually working with them right now to kind of create a new version of a data profile that actually may work for both of us instead of having two separate profiles. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yes, right. I know that's a really important project. Did you want to say something regarding that?
Can you summarize what she said?
Well, that's what I was hoping Rachel would help me with.
Okay, Rachel, can you summarize?
All right, I'll try and summarize. Our questioner is from the DPLA, the Digital Public Library, what's the A?
America?
Of America, which is a large project that's drawing data from a variety of sources, including the Smithsonian. We're a hub. And their organization has developed a variant schema based on the EDM and wanted to make everyone aware of that. Does it have a name?
Yeah, it's called the DPLA Metadata Application Profile, but we actually may rename it when EDM, and we're working very closely with the folks who created EDM to kind of create the next version of EDM/DPLA map. So we may kind of meld it to be one new name.
Yeah. And you can help me out here, because it's my understanding that one of the differences between the CDOC CRM and the EDM is that the EDM is especially useful for aggregated data resources where you're not drilling down very deeply into the data.
That's correct. And one of the things that we're both adding to the new schema is actually a collection class. So right now, you're at an item level. Everything is at an item level class, and you don't have that hierarchical data. So we're actually adding a collection class in the next version, which we're calling version 4. So just FYI.
Thank you.
This lady.
Hi, I'm Kate Blanchard from the Walters Art Museum in Baltimore, and I'm curious, how much support did you guys actually, or are you getting from the Information Sciences Institute? I mean, it's interesting, what's intriguing about this project is, we have some learning to do, but albeit as a smaller museum, I'm not sure we would really kind of garner, full support situation from, University of Southern California. So is this something that you can participate in and do somewhat independently, or do you need full support from those participants?
We had full support, and in full disclosure, we paid ISI to provide services to us. And I think what Eleanor's been talking about is getting a quorum of museums interested in this and finding funding so that maybe each individual museum wouldn't have to pay, but as part of a grant project, they would get their data converted. The Karma tool is an open source tool. You can find it on the website that Eleanor mentioned. So if you have technical staff, there's no reason they couldn't use it. However, I don't think the mapping and all is, I think some guidance is probably helpful. I know we couldn't have done it on our own. And like I said, we'd still be asking those initial questions. And I remember going to a Smithsonian conference about a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, on linked open data. And it seemed to me, I hate to say it, if you were there, I apologize in advance, but everyone seemed to be so down in the weeds. And, working with ISI, they really kind of got us from zero to having our data converted. So now we can start to think about the more fun stuff, making it work for us and not about how to manage the conversion.
Only, I wanted to add, in the case of the American Art Collaborative, that was a proof of concept, and the data that they sent, we just did. There was no financial transaction. It was in the spirit of seeing how linked open data can connect all of this information that we have been doing that. So I don't know, and I'm thinking Walter's,
Jim?
Yeah, Jim, but I'm thinking of your collection. If there is American art, data, then participate with us, and we'll, send us 40 records or 50 records, and we'll convert it to linked open data, and then you can see what that looks like, but you'll have a better understanding of what's involved for you. Yes. Hi.
Hi, Rob Stein from
Yeah.
the Dallas Museum of Art. So I think you've done a really great job, actually, looking at object metadata and ontologies that support object metadata. I'm curious if, in the process, you also looked at ontologies to link extended content or textual or media-based content that is also connected to objects or classes of objects. I'm looking for good ontology suggestions.
Right. That I would have to direct, I guess, to Pedro, because nothing that comes to mind for me to say here. But it's a very good question, and I'll get back to you on that. Okay.
Hi, David Farrell. I'm at PAMA, which is a small museum near Toronto, and I'm also the head of the Small Museum SIG. I wanted to ask Shane more of what sort of the thought processes were as to how he thought using open linked data is particularly beneficial to a smaller museum.
One of our goals is not just to make our collection available on our website, but to kind of increase access to that in as many different ways as possible. Every time we kind of start a new project to put new information online, one of the first things that we're asked and that we ask ourselves is how do we make this information useful from the very top to the very bottom, to the scholars who are really looking into, who really want to research this, all the way down to the people who are just kind of browsing and window shopping, I guess. So it's really attractive to us in that way that it'll first of all, it'll kind of give our collection exposure and then get it out there in the links that people are looking at from other places, but also people who are on our website or in our apps or on kiosks inside of our museums that are kind of looking for information, that they have access to information that isn't actually created inside of our museum, that it kind of broadens that out and kind of expands it so that we can offer them a more rich data and information. Also, we've been kind of brainstorming and discussing the in the future, the types of apps that we might be able to build for this. And that's kind of my favorite part of this process, is kind of really talking about what we're going to be able to do after all this is done, and how we can use that different types of information. And it's just, once we kind of get the ball rolling on that, we start coming with loads of ideas that we've just kind of wished for in the past, but haven't really had a way to get to, that this will kind of make possible once we have that big network there.
Another question. I wonder if you have a Wi-Fi connection available, and if you could give us a demonstration of linked open data in action so that we can see how it's working. Is that possible?
Yeah, do you have Wi-Fi? Can you think of an example that we can look at?
Well, Research Space and Yale have applications on their websites.
Mm-hmm. And there's also the New York Times linked up in
The
The New York Times link on the SAAM is probably better used. We have the data is out there for harvesting, but I don't know how many links we have on our website. So
Yeah.
it's
Sure.
Are you from Yale?
yeah, from the Yale Center for British Art.
Oh, you want to
Okay.
tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
All right.
Come- do you
I
wanna
am not
come-
the person to be talking about the links.
Oh, okay.
I'm an
Okay.
imaging guy, but we do have Emmanuel Damascus is the person who should have it. She's not here. But we have been working with the Paul Mountain Foundation, as well as a lot of, you mentioned Research Space. And, so we are doing a lot as far as publishing our records in RDF in data format. If you go through our collections, our online catalog, there are links to the RDF. So there are those records. As far as our actual applications, I haven't seen as much, but like I said, I'm on the imaging side. I'm not really.
I know when we did the Linked Open Data seminar at the Smithsonian on April 29th, Lek came and showed us a few things, from the website. So that's what sticks in my mind as, examples.
I mean, if you do the BritishArt.yale.edu, you
Mhm.
can go to the collection search and you can see the link data.
Mhm.
Like I said, you can get links, the link data sets there. But
Also, we haven't started adding those examples on there yet, but the URL on the bottom of the page is the AmericanArtCollaborative.org. Over the next couple of days, I was going to start adding some examples, both in use now and then collecting ideas for the future. Also, it would be nice if we could kind of start some discussion, people who are involved in and kind of what they need, and start kind of building ideas from that. 'Cause I know what my museum needs and what we're kind of asking for, but it's also really useful to kind of find out what other museums need, and if we can kind of collaborate and build tools and make those available to other museums and look, as platforms for them to build on. That, to me personally, that would be the best and most exciting way to proceed.
Yes, the lady.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Fink. I work for the National Documentation Center in Greece, and I also collaborate with one of the project leaders for European Ambrosia in European Space. It's not really a question, more like an observation. The amount of interest that linked open data has amassed, and the amount of investment that, at least in Europe, has been given to linked open data, museums and libraries and archives opening the data. And it seems that the new phase now is to prove the links with the creative industries, because there's been so much money spent on opening and linking data. I think the pressure for organizations like Europeana now is to prove that these are really boosting creative industries, and that's the purpose of projects like Europeana Ambrosia, which is about food and drink. So they take thematic, they take content from content partners across Europe, from the collections that have to do with food and drink, and try to create almost like a body of content that is thematic and see what they can do with it, develop a classification system for that. And they invited partners from the creative industries that come and show examples of hackathons and things to do and ways to benefit the creative industries. I'm just not convinced. I mean, from what I've seen, and I've read about these things, and I've seen the hackathons, the scope of them, the reuse of the images, and okay, all the hackathons that have been done, especially by the Dutch, who are pioneers in Europe, they have to do with individual museums and tours, and it seems to me that the scope is a little bit limited, and there needs to be the next stage of development to really link them to the industries and use all this cultural heritage content that has been digitized and opened with taxpayers' monies. So I feel there's a lot of pressure on organizations like this to prove their worth,
Yep.
to prove that what they're doing is valid. And I was wondering if you have the same issues in the States, if your funding for the next stage depends on these links with industries and your business models and all this stuff, and how you plan to go about it.
Yeah, I participate as an advisor on some EU-funded projects, and it's like day and night. There you have the, Directorate for Culture, and countries have ministries of culture, and you can do projects like Europeana. Here it's very different. But one of the exciting aspects of the American Art Collaborative, for example, is that it started from the bottom up, just through personal contact. And it started not because it was forced on anybody, as sometimes is the case in Europe, but because they wanted to learn and they were interested in connecting. Now, we will have the struggle, there's no question, of trying to get funding for it. But I think that we can achieve that, I really do, because this is blossoming now, and we do need the critical mass, of course, and then to try to come up with the applications. But I mean, in terms of tourism, cultural assets and things, I think this is, in a way, a very American, kind of point of view. So I don't know if we can catch up with Europeana, but I think we can take this very far in the end. But we will have to be innovative in terms of finding the funding.
And we are just starting to begin to think of applications. I think Rachel had a hackathon recently, but they're just starting to figure out what the applications and end result might be like on your site. And David, you had some good suggestions, actually, now that I know who you are in person, hi, about how useful it would be for a lot of small history museums to get their data into this kind of a format for genealogical research, and how helpful that would be. I mean, maybe there are already some initiatives like that with some of the fee-based genealogy sites, but I think that's a really good suggestion as well.
That's already a major difference there, because you're from the start, you're seeing the thing thematically. You're already doing like American art, you're thinking about genealogies and local histories, whereas Europeana, because it's top down and it's not grassroots,
Exactly.
they think, let's just gather everything first, and they have no content strategy. So when you go to the Europeana portal, you understand that they've got all the European stuff there, but what do they do with it? So in this stage, after all these years they've been developing this work, they realize that they have no content strategy, and they're starting to think about this thematically, like you do from the beginning. So I think that's already an answer there.
Yeah. And also, and quite honestly speaking, there's really not much linked open data in Europeana.
It just opens.
It's just open, yeah, right. So that's a difference too. Oh, sorry, yeah,
I mean, I think there is a huge difference, but I think we all have to remember that they started 5 years ago.
right.
And they had a total different data model. They had a flat data structure, like we all did. And now they've turned that into a hierarchical data structure using EDM, and they had to go back and convert all of that data. So 5 years ago, we were all in a different place, and we weren't doing linked open data. So I think that's a huge difference. And I think the top-down funding model is also a big difference. You get your money from the government, we don't.
Right.
We all get our money from different sources, and so we have to work from a grassroots level.
Yeah.
So you have I would say some huge advantages in some ways, as opposed to ways that we work, but grassroots often is more sustainable.
Right, right. We'd like to think so.
The major difference with I mean, the great thing that we've done is the Creative Commons, And I followed some of the talks here about the public domain. I think that's how you call your Creative Commons, public domain. And
CC0, basically.
CC0.
You have a public domain mark. Your piano has public domain mark. But
yes, that's outside the CCs, isn't it?
It's outside of the CCs. Well, yes.
It would be interesting to see like a similar model of the tiered licensing in the American Art Collaborative, for example.
So we are starting to work with Europeana in DPLA on right statements that are actually the same across the board. So we're going to have like 13 right statements so that right statements are actionable, so that you could search for things in the public domain versus things that are CC BY, things like that.
Well, since you brought up the licensing topic, and since my colleague Alan Newman is sitting in the front row, and he knows at my institution we've not yet taken our images to the open access model. So we have 2 licenses here in our Linked Open Data project. The data will all be totally open under the least restricted license, and the images are going to be all there under the most restricted license. So I'd love to change that, but right at the moment, Alan's got a task on Monday to convince my boss that that's what we should do.
Any other questions? Well, there are handouts here, the 2 papers, and let's hear from you. If you want to participate somehow with sample data, contact us and or contact me. You have my email, and we'll take it from there. We can do this. We can build it. Thank you.